Hello, and welcome back to Underdog Investing. Today I'd like to talk about Virgin Galactic. Firstly, I'm going to go through the fourth quarter and full year 2020 investor update, and I'm just going to talk you through some of the important points that I found quite useful and interesting. And then finally, I'd like to talk about the stock price and what I'm planning to do, and also like to talk about how it was affected by the earnings call. Before I jump into the video, I'll be grateful if you can smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for future updates. So let's go through this. The first thing they mention is the 2020 achievements. I don't really want to spend too much time on this because I find the true value of an investor's report in what's happening now and in the future. So I want to talk about 2021 onwards. So starting with the flight test program update. So we've got 3 test flights before we become operational. The first one involves 2 pilots, and this test flight is likely to result in us achieving the 2 final FAA requirements before we become operational. And it's also very important because we've got some revenue generating payloads under the NASA Flight Opportunities Program. The second one is quite straightforward, and it includes full cabin of mission specialists and 2 pilots on board. And then the final one is the most famous one and includes Sir Richard Branson in this particular test flight. So let's talk a bit about the first test flight. So on December the 12th, 2020, we actually had a test flight, and that wasn't quite successful, but we did learn a lot. For example, we demonstrated that we were able to be safe and we're able to adapt in unknown situations. We actually landed safely despite having issues with the rocket motor. Virgin Galactic have also stated now that they've identified the issue which caused the rocket motor controller reboot, and the issue was electromagnetic interference. But they've managed to fix this problem and they created a new system now. We were supposed to fly on February 2021 from around 13th of February. But because we had an issue during the pre-flight preparations, we noticed that there was still some possible issues with the electromagnetic interference. So Virgin Galactic didn't want to take any chances. So what's happening now is they're actually analyzing the issue and correcting the issue. And we're actually planning to fly again in May 2021. So that's the first test flight is planned for May 2021. And we're hoping that's successful. And if that is, we're likely to have the second and third one in summer. So potentially we could be operational within this year. So that would be very exciting. Now, just quickly running through some of the markets that they want to get into. So in terms of this space market, we've got private astronauts, which is the space tourism play. And that will be the one sending private customers to space for $250,000 to $400,000 per ticket. And then we've got other ones that are targeting things like NASA. So microgravity research, for example, when we send payloads into suborbit to get certain materials tested in these low gravity environments, which can't really be tested on Earth. And then we've got professional astronaut training. We've also got an announcement for the confirmation of Italian Air Force flight. And they mentioned that this will take place around summer of this particular year. And it also will involve revenue generating payloads. So that is very exciting as well. Let's move on to the next part of the Virgin Galactic becoming operational. So this part I find very important, more important than the first part. So what we've talked about so far is what they need to do to become operational. And I feel like they've actually got that part in the bag. It's not going to be too difficult for them to become operational. They've got 3 test flights left, and they've previously had successful test flights anyway, so this isn't going to be much of a challenge. I think the true challenge is in terms of expanding the fleet, so making more spaceships and making more motherships in order to be able to fly regularly and on a consistent basis so that we can actually generate that revenue. That's going to be the real challenge for Virgin Galactic. So during this investor presentation, they actually addressed that quite a lot, so I'm quite impressed with that. So the first thing is they're going to roll out a second spaceship, so Spaceship 3, on the 30th of March 2021, so that's very soon. And this second spaceship will start ground testing after it rolls out, and it will also go into flight tests this summer. So like I mentioned, scaling and manufacturing is going to be very important for Virgin Galactic. And they acknowledge that they need to pivot from research and development to actual manufacturing to achieve their target of actually flying 400 flights per year per spaceport. So it's very important for them to figure this one out. And they've actually made a few new recruits, which I think will help them achieve these targets in terms of manufacturing. And we'll go through that in a bit. So, like I said, they're taking this very seriously. So they're planning to commence design efforts on new class of spaceships and motherships, which will allow for higher capacity, more efficiency, and reduced and more reliable turnaround time and scalability. So that's all working towards being able to create a large enough fleet across a number of spaceports so that they can reach that target of 400 flights per year, which they need to fly regularly, which is why they mentioned a reliable turnaround time, because any delay in terms of any flights will really have a dramatic effect in terms of revenue because of the cost of the actual tickets. So you're actually losing a lot of money if you're not able to fly regularly and on a consistent basis. So as I mentioned, they're taking it very seriously, and they've actually hired some very skilled and talented people. For example, Stephen Justice, they've just hired to be the Vice President of Engineering, and he's had a lot of experience in terms of engineering when it comes to aerospace. As well as Swami Iyer, who is now the President of Aerospace Systems. Again, plenty of experience. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've already spoken about these two gentlemen in my previous video. And then we've got Doug Ahrens, who will be the new Chief Financial Officer. Again, he's had plenty of experience in terms of a CFO role, and I think he'll be a good addition to this team. Talking a bit more about interesting recruits. So I'm starting to notice a theme here. There's something about them recruiting Disney people. For example, the CEO is now Michael Colglazier, who was a former president of Disneyland Resorts, and he was hired and he started working in Virgin Galactic in July 2020. So that was quite exciting. But if you have a look here, they've just hired Joe Rody, who was basically the he was a Disney Imagineer for 40 years at Walt Disney. And so the other thing is Jeff Goodman. He was also previously head of global strategy and business development for Disney Parks, as well as chief commercial officer for Disneyland Resort. So they really are hiring a lot of people from Disney, and they actually mentioned in the earnings call that this is one of their actual things that are going to make them stand out compared to other competitors like Blue Origin and SpaceX if they ever go into tourism, because with all this talent they are able to create a magical experience for customers at Virgin Galactic, which is really going to make them stand out. And they also hired Blair Rich, who was previously the president of worldwide marketing at Warner Bros. So that'll be quite exciting. So she'll be the marketing and brand strategy lead. And then they've got some cool astronauts that they've added to the Space Advisory Board recently. So Chris Hadfield and Dr. Sandy Magnus. Okay, so in terms of financials, there's really not too much to say, but there is some good news if we break it down. So obviously we're losing money because we are not operational yet, but we are still researching heavily in terms of becoming operational. So if we have a look here, our net loss for this quarter was 74 million, similar to Q3. And then our net loss for the year was 270 million compared to 211 million in 2019. So let's just say 270 million per year is how much we need until we become operational. And we have a look here, you can see this is their cash and cash equivalents. So we've actually increased significantly from 2019, where we had 480 million in cash and cash equivalents, to now, ending on December 31st, 2020, we actually had $666 million. Okay, so if we take the 270 million per year, and imagine we've got 666 million, and imagine that never increases, then we've actually got another 2.5 years of staying afloat before we actually run out of money. And the thing is, we're actually closer than ever to becoming operational, and they actually mentioned in the earnings call that we're likely to have completed all 3 test flights by summer. So that's less than a year. So let's say we spend about 200 to 250 million before we become operational. We're left with about 400 to 450 million. So what are we going to spend that on? So we will spend that likely on fleet expansion. So like I mentioned already, imagine if we're operational by summer, that would leave us with 400 million. We can spend that on fleet expansion. We need to spend it on fleet expansion and manufacturing. I think that would be quite expensive. But the point that I wanted to point out here is that in 2019, we had a lot less cash and we were a lot further away from becoming operational. Whereas in 2020, we're now becoming a lot more cash rich, but at the same time we're a lot closer to becoming operational. So we're actually in a much stronger position now than we were just a year ago. So yeah, they just wanted to reiterate the point that these are the key points here. So fleet readiness, which I think they've got in the bag, so that just requires 3 more test flights. Fleet expansion, which I also think they will have in the bag because of the recent hires that they've made in terms of the Vice President of Engineering as well as the President of Aerospace Systems. I think these are really going to change the way they manufacture, and it's really going to help them become a scale to the level where they need to be at. And then finally, astronaut and consumer experiences. Again, they've made some amazing hires, including Joe Rody. I think they're really going to create magical experiences for customers going forward when they become operational. So that's pretty much the investor reports. Let's move on to the stock price now. So as you can see, we actually finished the day at $42. So that's about 8.3% down. But once the report came out and the earnings call happened, we actually dropped about 16% or 15.6%. So we are at around $35 now. So that's a significant drop. And I wouldn't say I'm completely surprised by that, especially because of the fact that we are not operational yet. I know it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but that tends to happen regardless. There's going to be people out there who are only holding the stock short term, maybe day trading, but I personally am long-term bullish on this stock because we've still got so many positive catalysts coming up, including the success of the next test flights, the addition to ArcX, the future of hypersonic travel. So if anything, I see this as a buying opportunity. If we have a look at the longer term chart, you can see that we're still significantly up from about 6 months ago. 6 months ago, we were trading at about $17. So despite this massive pullback, we're still up about 143%. So like I said, this to me is a perfect buying opportunity. If I didn't have any stock, I would probably dollar cost average into this stock. So I think that's about all I wanted to mention. If you found it useful, I'd be grateful if you can share this video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think about this earnings report? And do you feel confident in terms of their ability to execute on the things that they mentioned in this report? And I'd also like to know what you're planning to do with this stock. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.